And there we are. It's like having a new toy where I have to click my countdown and bring us in dramatically to the show. So, well, I am delighted to be here today with like my new best friend. I know you're best friends with Jerry too, but my new best friend as well, Shelby Hoefling. Yeah. So Shelby and I connected because someone else, someone who works with me said, you have to check out Shelby's podcast, because Shelby does a podcast, Words of Wisdom with Shelby, where she interviews older adults. And so Jerry Witkowski, who's one of my clients, Shelby just interviewed him last week. And it's really, what I loved was your comment was, I like to nerd out on like my gerontology stuff. So how did you even, how did you even get started with doing that? What was your interest and how did you turn it into a podcast?
So, yeah, I love nerding out is a recent thing I heard from a friend and I love it. But like since talking to you and Jerry, I was like, this is great. We all just nerd out on like older adults and what we can do and how we can help them and connect them. So that has been awesome. I do consider you a really, really great best friend, and as well as Jerry.
I was afraid where you were going with that sentence. I was waiting for you to go, and I really do consider you just an amazing older adult. I was going to be like, Shelby, okay. I was like, where's she going with that sentence?
No,
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Exactly.
So, but I know your guests are easily like well over 80 and into their 90s. And I saw everything from a Holocaust survivor to someone who's like an adventurer in Australia. So yeah, who are your guests and how do you find them?
My guests are really just anybody. Like it can be any older adult. The only stipulation that I have is that they're over the age of 65, just so I can like have kind of a boundary there. But I have always been fascinated by older adults and all that they have to share and their experience and their wisdom. And I just think that like the more that you live, obviously, the more that you learn. And so it just makes sense that the older you are, the more you have to share. And so I just thought, why isn't there a platform, at least that I've heard of, where we can learn from older adults? And it doesn't have to be these older adults who are extremely successful and they're celebrities or they have like all these platforms. It can just be any older adult, because I think that it doesn't matter who you are, but you've been through something and you have something to share. And so, yeah, I have just always enjoyed learning from any older adult that I have interacted with. And so I created the podcast to give a platform for that. So I'm open.
And what kind of things have you learned? So I know you interview people. Like, what are some of the things that you learned from doing this?
I mean, the things that I personally love learning from them is hearing from them stories and experiences that they've been through. And then I
share that our Linda loves this.
But really just like any story. I think that it's just that they're older, so they've been through more stories. And so for me, the things that I love learning is just what is their experience and maybe times that they've been afraid of something and then they push past that fear. Or, I mean, the biggest thing that I always learn from them is that I feel like the more that you live, the less afraid you are to make mistakes and go after different things. And I also feel like you're also more able to be a little bit more authentic because you're not so afraid of opinions of others and what role you're playing in life. You've kind of already accomplished maybe what you wanted. And
talk to me more about that idea of, because there is that thing, I've heard that from older adults a lot, where it's like that you just don't care anymore. Like you don't care what people's thinking. Why can't we translate that to younger people? Or is that what you're saying? Sometimes you learn little tips on how to translate that to younger people.
Yeah, I think that you can learn these things when you hear people talk about it, and you kind of have permission all of a sudden to just let go of those fears and doubts that you have when you hear someone else telling you with their experience that actually it's not worth it to be afraid to go after the thing that scares you, things like that. But they always say like 40s is the new 30s, 50s is the new 40s. And I truly think that the older that you are, the more that you just let down your barriers and you're just more authentic and you have less fear and things like that. So I think that plays kind of into it.
And I know that I had to laugh where I'm trying to focus on you, and I accidentally flashed up like my face as like the "What are you saying? Look at me." Um, so, so one of the things that you have said, which I love, is that you have a person in your life who's extremely special, who has inspired a lot of this. And my question to you is, what is your grandma telling you right now that is making you laugh so hard?
I honestly don't think it was one specific thing. I think that just being around her makes my heart happy. And she probably just pointed out something cute about the book and it made me laugh. I laugh a lot when I'm happy and I'm around her.
Well, and it sounds like though the book, so the book that you wrote, so let's take a look at that. You actually then inspired by your grandmother wrote this book, Grandma's in the Phone. And I understand, is that your son that is the inspiration for this, little Mac? For the two of you to interact, for them to be able to interact via the phone.
Yes. So no, that is not my son. That is my nephew.
Okay.
That's my nephew, Mac. And the reason why I put him in it, because I mean, it's just more fun when characters are someone special from your life. But he was just, someone special in my life. And I wanted to kind of have a cute little tribute to my grandma, who the book is really dedicated for, who I my nanny. And then I thought, okay, who can be the little kid who's going to FaceTime with grandma? So then I put Mac in there, my nephew, and he has a huge set of hair and everybody loves his hair. So the little boy Mac in the book, he has a lot of hair in it. But yeah, I wrote that book. I wrote it for my grandma. And so my hope for that book is it teaches kids how to have quality FaceTime conversations with their grandparents, because it's the thing of the future and of the present.
Right. And how they can really, what are some of the tips that you have? Because they might look at each other, but with TV and stuff, to kids, how do you help kids so that they actually understand that's a real person, that's Nana in the phone?
So, I mean, if you think about it, growing up, we've always had children's books that teach us how to like tie our shoes and how to be kind and share and what you learn at school and life lessons as well. And so I was noticing that kids were FaceTiming with relatives. It could be anybody in their phone. And I thought about how, they're doing this, but they're not really being taught it. And I feel like also right now in today's culture, we're in this like really awkward in between where kids are using the phone more. There's more screen time, but it's almost like uncomfortable to acknowledge that. And we're not sure of like the long-term effects or things like that. There's the screen time, like you want to not do it too often.
Right. Well, does a call with your grandma count as screen time? That's
right. And it should, like it does, but it should, because to me it's important. And so I just figured, this is something that we're doing, so why don't we make the most of it? And kids are learning all sorts of things. Why don't we teach these kids things that they can do with grandma on the phone, but also be inspired and then want to do it, rather than a kid who's holding up the phone or mom's like, oh, Mac, please, grandma's calling and she really wants to see you. And grandparents, they miss their grandkids when they're not with them, and they want to be on the phone with the grandkid and the grandkid to be excited. And so I thought, if these children are reading a children's book about a little boy who's excited to FaceTime grandma, it's going to be in their subconscious. And so things that Mac and grandma do is Mac will show grandma his stuffed animal friends, so that, a little kid can go show grandma all their toys and stuffed animal friends, shows grandma a picture that they drew. They sing together. And then he also will show grandma, what's in the garden, and just really anything.
So ways to have actually meaningful connection on the phone. Is there anything on the flip side for grandparents on how to do it, or how it's more for the kids on the content?
More for the kids on the content,
which is fine. I mean, there's plenty of other sources for older adults on like how to use technology. So
yeah, and I would love to create something that does help on the other side for older adults to maybe learn of like what are things that they could ask or things that they could do or questions to ask. And that's ties into what Jerry does,
I was thinking the same thing. Jerry does that a lot, like questions to ask your children to get a conversation going. His big thing is never say like, how was school? Say, tell me a story about school. And that idea of storytelling sometimes will spark kids to have bigger conversations. So,
yeah, I know. It's almost like Jerry and I, like, we're doing like the same thing, but from the different generations. And it's kind of cool how it like kind of like fits together a little bit.
I do have to say, I loved this. I'm looking over to another screen, but I just thought this was adorable, which is the call your grandma hat. Actually, what's so funny is grandparents, but I guess really who should buy it? I could see my mom actually buying it for her grandchildren, but I don't know if it would have the same kind of light humor if you do it that way.
So I love that you brought that up. So those are hats that I've actually, so I get a little bit excited when I have ideas of things that I want to do. And so that is on, that's like right next to the table. Like it's on like the table of things I need to get to. But yeah, I mean, I like my whole mission and everything with this is to inspire people to call their grandparents. And whenever I post pictures on my Instagram or something about me calling my grandma, and a friend will DM me and they'll be like, you just reminded me to call my grandma. Like that's
so great.
That makes me so happy. So if I could spread that more with a hat, like why not? So I can get hats made. I just haven't figured out the whole process of selling them and then like getting them out.
What the products are. Sure.
There.
Well, so one place when you talk about giving people ideas of things to do with their grandparents, let's take a look at so this is your Instagram, but what I love is you're doing so how did you that's so funny. How did you guys get the matching outfits?
That was like a fad. And then a friend told me, she was like, you've got to make some tie-dye outfits with Nanny. And I was like, okay. So we did.
You guys actually make the outfits too?
We made them together. We did a YouTube tutorial on it too.
Oh my God, that's adorable. All right. Yeah, so
fun. It's a great activity to do with your grandma, with anybody really, but with your grandma, I loved it.
I know I was in charge of tie-dye every time we do a block party. Of course, we haven't been able to do it in so long. Because I want to share. So here's the problem. We're going over to TikTok again. These are your Instagram. So it's your Instagram, but it's connecting to your TikTok. And it turns out there's Shelby on Instagram, so you can see it. It turns out there's like this thing. You were covered in ARP and I think the Washington Post, where they were talking about grandchildren and grandparents who are doing TikToks together. So the danger is, particularly anyone who's watching, like throw in a question if I don't get off TikTok in a minute, because it is so addictive. It is so much fun. But you guys did hilarious ones. So let's show another one of your TikTok videos. This one.
We did a little friend thing.
Oh my gosh. All right. So that was your
our friends,
your friends one, which is so much fun. What I want to do, and then we'll do that as a launching pad for talking more. Let me find, let's try this one. So now that you guys are social distancing, you've actually done, so let's look at that, some social distanced videos.
We did. So this was This was in the beginning of like with Corona and quarantine. My nanny was still in Florida, so we did it together.
Oh my gosh, that is fantastic.
It's so great because we were both, I mean, I was feeling lonely and I missed her. I wanted to do things. And so, yeah, we would just get on FaceTime and do the videos, and I would screen record it and then I would put it together. And that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now on some of them, is she memorizing the choreography ahead of time, or is she actually following you and then you're juxtaposing the times when you edit it?
She's kind of, what we'll do is like, I'll tell her like, so what we have to do is we kind of have to, we're both actually horrible at dancing. Like we're both bad. We're both bad at remembering. She's 100% probably better than me. But like elbow, elbow, hand, hand, down. And then we'll do that all together. And then we'll move on to the next part. And then I'll piece it together at the same time. But at one point she said to me, she was like, is this, I called her and I was like, man, let's do a TikTok, let's do a video and everything. And she was like, okay, I don't know why your people like doing this yoga. And I'm like, no, Nanny, this isn't yoga.
All right, just because you said it first, not me, you commented on your own dancing. So let me just show one more video.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I love this one.
Oh, wait, this is the wrong one.
Tay Swift.
Oh, wait.
We're so fun to do together.
I like your nerd out at the end. So, that's so fantastic. But I actually, so what I find so interesting about this is there are so many studies that show that intergenerational connections are good for everybody. Because if you look at the two of you, you're laughing, she's laughing, you're having so much fun. And sometimes people don't realize when you look at a grandparent and a grandchild, all the studies and all the things about intergenerational connections actually apply, even though you've got the core of love. And so the fact that you're able to show her, she's participating and trying your stuff, it's like you're able to really connect at a much deeper level.
It's great. Yeah. And I think that, there's this kind of idea out there that as you grow older, you're less capable of doing things like this. Like, don't push her too hard. Like, this is too much on her, like, brain, or too much even on her movement. And I'm always very careful. Like, I'm not going to say to my, like, okay, let's hop up and down on like one foot. So I'm careful. But there is this idea that as you grow older, you can't like, let's be careful. But I think that doing things like this, I feel like it keeps them young, and it keeps their brain working. And then just like you said, it spreads joy, and it kind of, my hope is that it also can inspire others, for older adults and young kids, to do things with their grandparents, and like, just have fun. No matter your age, just have fun.
Well, and studies do show, I know you and I have that in common. You're a certified yoga instructor. I'm a group fitness instructor. And so there are a ton of studies that show a lot of things. Actually, dancing to music is supposed to make you happier. Memorizing the choreography, learning those repetitive things, like memorizing the choreography, is really good for cognitive skills. And so there are studies that affirm what you're saying.
Yes, totally. It's so good. So good for like the body, the brain, everything, like overall happiness level, for sure.
So does this play out? So you've got the podcast, you've got things that you're doing with your grandma as well. How does this play into other things that you do in terms of this intergenerational approach that you have?
Well,
what are some of the other things you do?
Yeah, so I've always just had a passion for working with and helping with the elderly. So in college, I worked at an adult day center, and then I've worked at a retirement home. So it's really cool how it kind of is coming a little bit more full circle, and I'm able to share the things I do with my grandma and work on the children's book and the podcast. And then another thing that I've been getting more into, thanks to quarantine, it's cool how, or like with the coronavirus, it's kind of cool how everything, for me, my world was turned upside down, and I was a yoga teacher going into studios and jumping from studio to studio teaching yoga classes. And since everything kind of was, put to a stop, I've been doing more of chair yoga with older adults, which is something that makes me so happy. And it's so much more like my speed, literally. And so I've been meeting with older adults, and sometimes we'll do it like distance with, 6 feet of distance and being careful. And then sometimes a lot of my classes are online and on Zoom. And so that has been super awesome. And I've been just connecting with older adults doing that. And not only do we do chair yoga, which is so beneficial for your physical health and breathing and your mind, but also it's nice just for me to kind of connect with them and just ask them how they're doing, check in, and be that weekly check-in.
Are any of them available on YouTube as well, or is there a place if somebody wanted to watch them, or are they all private lessons?
I do have one video or I have a couple videos on YouTube. There's one that's like really good quality. It's kind of hard to get that perfect quality with the microphone and everything.
Sure.
And so there are a few kind of out there for like tasters. So if anybody does want to try,
Okay.
or they
Is
can.
it also Shelby Hoefling on YouTube as well?
Yes. And then I'm also happy to send videos out to anybody if they do want to reach out to me. Like I sent some to Jerry, and so there's a benefit to doing it through the videos and just like playing it whenever. But I do think that there's also that benefit of, as you know, like you can only do so many videos that have been recorded and it's not live, versus doing something live keeps you accountable, and you're, building on it each week and you're checking in with a person. So that's where I think is you can get the most benefit.
Right. So there's the relationship part of it, which I know you're working on a second book as well about teacher in the computer, which also is about how to help kids realize that how they can connect. It's that emotional connection that they can have with people through the computer. What's going on with that?
Yes. So that's out in just about a couple weeks. I think I'm going to start to open up like the pre-orders in about a week or two. And it's about a little girl, and she is going back to school through the computer. So it's called My Teachers in the Computer. And the reason why I wrote this is because I have a lot of friends who are teachers, and I have friends who are parents, and, they're talking about this new world of kids going back to school virtually. And it's something that we really, we kind of touched on it. We did it a little bit in the spring when all of this happened, but it's like, it's happening full force now. So, so they were talking to me about how it's hard because kids are getting distracted, and I also think that they're getting kind of like discouraged, and it's kind of like a bummer. They've never read a children's book about a little girl who's excited to go to school through the computer. So that's what the book is about. And it teaches children how to be a gold star student through the computer. And this little girl finds the silver lining of the situation that she's in, and she'll just show kids how to be a good student through the computer, stay focused, no eating while you're on the computer, how to participate, raise your hand, take a break from the screen midday and things like that.
Oh, that's great. That is really needed now too. So for anyone who's watching live, feel free to put in questions, or actually after the fact, because this will live on both Facebook and YouTube after the fact. So we invite questions there as well, for sure. Now I'm just going like the whole fitness stuff that we both have in common. So how does sort of yoga, fitness, and mindfulness, how do you integrate? Do you feel like these are separate parts of your life, or is there a thread for you that permeates everything?
I think that it all comes together. I mean, with the chair yoga, I have found that teaching chair yoga to older adults has been so wonderful. I've enjoyed it so much, but I've also even noticed for myself that it helps for me to slow down and focus on my breath, and
for sure.
Yeah, and feel these like benefits of stretching and just moving around in your chair and taking a break. And I think that I feel like chair yoga, I told Jerry this, but I feel like chair yoga it's going to be more popular soon. And because it's really what it is to me is it's also very much meditating while you're moving. And people are always saying, oh, I want to meditate more. But it's hard to do that, to sit still. It's overwhelming for some people. So if you can meditate while also stretching and moving, I think that chair yoga is like the thing of the future, but that's what I'm predicting. We'll see.
Well, I just think as people are living longer and staying active longer as well. I know I'm finding just with the whole teaching thing where while we couldn't go to clubs, teaching classes online. And so I would show, because I couldn't, when you do it online, you can't always see the person who's actually doing it. So to be safe, I was showing like high impact, low impact, and chair. So I would have a chair there to actually show the chair modification. To actually show people, it used to be like, well, if you have to be in the chair, then you're not exercising. But what you're saying is, no, you can actually get a good workout in the chair, and there's some benefits to it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that my arms are super toned since doing chair yoga because you're doing so many arms up and
Mhm.
around and things like that. You can do some ab workouts like up and down, and then you can do your legs as well as you're lifting your legs up and down and things like that. So you can get for sure a good workout.
Mhm.
It's very very focused workout.
Mhm. Yeah. How does your grandma, I'm thinking now, the whole grandparent grandchild connection, which is Jerry. We keep mentioning Jerry. Jerry, I'll put his link in the comments. He actually does programs to help grandparents and grandchildren enter each other's worlds. But this idea of grandchildren getting their grandparents involved in social media, there's a kid, his name is Kevin. I don't know if you heard of him. He's on YouTube. And actually, his YouTube name is This Kid Needs Meds, I think. But I know he has done so many videos with his grandma to the point where they went to a social media convention. She's like a huge social media celebrity now because of all of his YouTubes. Because it's Grandma Lil. It's hilarious. It's absolutely wonderful, and they have such a close relationship. You know, that bond of bringing the two of you together really seems so special. Like, are there things that you've learned about your grandma since you've been doing more of these things together that you didn't know before?
To be honest, my nanny and I have always been super close, and we've always had a lot of fun together. I've always like kind of pushed the envelope with her, like, Nanny, let's do this. And maybe that's something that someone else might think, oh, should we ask our 94-year-old grandma to do that? But I'm
Mm,
just, I just treat her as a friend. I mean, I am very careful, but I,
mm,
so I've always kind of pushed the envelope with her. We've always had really deep conversations. I am
mm,
always asking her all of the things. And so I think that mostly the benefit of me filming it and sharing it with others
mm,
is simply to share it, but also for me to have these memories. So
mm,
I look back on all of the videos that I do with my nanny, the pictures that we have, the conversations that we have, probably more so than other people do, because it's something that like makes me very happy. So I
sure.
think that that's been the biggest
Mm,
benefit of it, is it's something now that I have for forever, and it
mm,
brings me happiness in times when I'm not with her. So I get to look
mm.
at it and see what
To
we've
go
done.
back and see it. You know, one thing you said I think is so important, because what you said was sometimes people have assumptions about older adults, so they don't involve them or don't engage them. And in all fairness, especially in work in intercultural and intercultural communications and things like that, it's letting the other person make those decisions. So
Yeah.
not going in with assumptions about what they can or can't do, but saying, hey, do you want to do this, or is there a way you could modify to do it? That's really important, you
Yes.
know.
I mean, if you think about it, if people are asking you to do things less often as you grow older, then you're not going to do those things. And,
Mm, yeah.
you know, and if people are telling you like, oh no, you're too old to do that, you're going to start believing it. Anybody would believe it. I mean, if you think about it, like if you hurt yourself, my mom's hurt her shoulder recently. And so she hasn't been able to do things. And then your body starts to just follow along. Everything else starts to follow along. So if we continue to allow them to have a voice and what is it that
Mhm.
you want to
Yeah.
do, that will help them to stay young at heart, I think. And yeah, just allowing them
Mhm.
also to play a role. I think that that's a big thing for older adults, is they feel like they don't have that role to play anymore in life,
Mm,
and they're kind of, just in the background. And I think anything that you can do to give them a role to play and give them their independence back, however possible, I think is
mm,
really important for their overall health and happiness.
mm. That's great, and it sounds like you do that with your podcast, with the book, with everything, which I wanna make sure I showed this. So Grandma's in the Phone is the book, and, so you can actually get the book. So at shelbyhoefling.com/shop, you can get both the book and the hat, the Call Your Grandma hat. Um,
And it's
I
on Amazon.
Oh, and on Amazon as well. So I want to ask you one other thing, which is, and I do this always, so, I always talk about this particular show being about all things intercultural and intergenerational, and how that relates to communication and connecting. And
Mhm.
so with that, I have a few things that I always follow, which are good rules for it. Self-awareness, knowing who you are allows you to then be able to adapt kind of how you communicate with the other person. Being
Mhm.
curious, which it sounds like you've got that really well, being curious about the other perspective taking, and I like to say what scares you dares you, to get out of your comfort zone. But so if this were an intercultural toolkit, what is one thing that you would add to that toolkit?
Oh gosh, I love all of these things. Super basic and just say have fun. I think that having fun in life and enjoying what you're doing and conversations that you're having with older adults, I think at the end of the day, that's the most important thing in life is just to have fun, not take it too seriously. So I think in a conversation that you're having with older adults or any connection, just have fun. And then I think both parties will get the most out of it.
So I think on that note, let's see if we've got one more of your videos that will show. Oh, here we go. Is it okay to show your nephew, the one with your nephew?
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's not,
okay.
It's not up, but I don't.
All right.
There we
so
go.
Talk about having fun together. Here's 3 generations having fun.
Oh my God.
That does look fun. So that's actually Mac and Grandma made famous in the book, Grandma's in the Phone. So, Shelby, thank you so much for joining me today. This was a lot of fun. The work you're doing is fabulous. I think with not only within the familial relationships, but there's so much that translates to just valuing intergenerational relationships just across life is fantastic. So thank you so much. I look forward for more stuff to come with us on all the work we've been doing together.
I'm so grateful that we've been connected. So thank you so much. This has been so much fun, and I can't wait to see what's ahead for all of us.
Me too. Bye-bye. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.